I have a long-standing tradition of sharing brief comments on the books that I've enjoyed the most over the previous year, right around New Year's time. And I usually share these with my various online reading communities, and I thought, because it's New Year's week, that I would share a couple of these reviews and comments here with you. This year's reading has been somewhat limited compared to previous years, largely because of this channel, which has been requiring about 12 hours a week of my time, and that's seriously eaten into my reading. But I have managed to make a lot of videos, so it's all to the good. And as a special bonus next week, I'm going to show you 10 books that are close to the top of my very tall pile of books to be read. Some of these may turn up on the 2019 list of favorite reads. These are all books that I've read this year, not necessarily published this year. Although the first one was published this year, and it's probably the most valuable and intriguing book that I've read. So I'm going to start with that book in nonfiction, and it's this book, Who We Are and How We Got Here, by David Reich. I loved this book. It's an exciting look at a revolutionary innovation, and the book was a revelation. The author is one of the world's foremost experts on human paleogenetics, an emerging field radically influencing traditional paleoanthropology. Over the last few years, DNA technology has advanced from examining the Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA to whole genome analysis. The results are staggering. The history of the human migrations over the last 50,000 years that colonized the entire globe are being made clearer very quickly. We see the primacy of the mixing of populations in human history. Even ancient contributions to the human genome by other ancient human populations such as Neanderthal and Denisovans are not lost, but in fact detected and discerned. In this book, Reich conveys the methodologies and recent results of this work. I am in awe that questions about human origins that I've pondered my entire life are right now being answered. I never thought that I would be alive during the time that we came to know the stuff that we're starting to know. It's pretty amazing. As Reich indicates in this book, much of the specifics will change over time because of the rapid pace of discovery. But the insights in this book leave one well prepared to assimilate the wealth of data that is surely coming. To me, it's essential reading, and I definitely intend to make some videos on this topic soon. So for me, I give it 4.5 stars for the book, but 5 stars for importance. The next book on my list for this year is Thoughts Without a Thinker, Psychotherapy from a Buddhist Perspective by Mark Epstein, MD, with a foreword by the Dalai Lama. This book lay in wait for many years, and without a doubt, the title is fantastic. While Buddhist ideas have been useful in Western psychotherapy for many years, it's rare to find an author with Epstein's combination of both Buddhist and psychoanalytic sophistication in depth. This is not the book for someone looking for an introduction to Buddhist ideas, and it's definitely not a self-help book. But it's a fascinating look at how an expert integrates Buddhist ideas into Western psychological thinking. And third and finally, in the nonfiction category for 2018 was Sam Harris's Waking Up, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion. Sam Harris, most rational spiritualist, offers this concise guide to striving for meaning and happiness. The appeal is neither to theology nor to the conventional sources of gratification alone. Hedonic pleasure, family, wealth, contribution to others. In this, he follows the Buddhist insight that while these may bring temporary gratification, they are transitory, and that there is more serenity and bliss to be found outside of these through clarity about human life and the workings of the human mind. This book is part memoir of Harris's own spiritual journey. He credits early drug experiences with showing him that there is more joy to be found in life than he had previously been aware. He subsequently spent many years with teachers in Asia and he came away with a meditation practice that he regards as among the most important of spiritual tools. To me, the first chapter is a very useful encapsulation of the problem of happiness and Buddhist perspectives on it. Harris then attempts to integrate his Buddhist practice with his knowledge of Western science, especially neuroscience and Western philosophy. I find this part of his thinking less useful, but he does offer tools for beginning a meditation practice and a structure for thinking about spirituality without appeal to faith. Overall, he's performed a valuable service. Harris became a voice of the new atheism after the end of faith. Perhaps he owed his readership this book, a way back to spirituality. So I'm on to my fiction section now, and the book that I really liked this year is this one. I don't know if you can see this. The Fifth Season by K Jemisin, which is subtitled Every Age Must Come to an End. If the book weren't enough, I would be intrigued by Jemisin's unprecedented success. She is the only author ever to have received the Hugo Award for Best Novel in Science Fiction and Fantasy 3 years in a row. She burst on the scene with this book, The Fifth Season, in 2015, and then wrote 2 worthy and highly regarded and awarded sequels. The Fifth Season takes place in the stillness, a place not Earth, where cyclical conditions mean civilizations and empires rise and fall and maybe are about to fall once again. The inner lives of the characters carry the narrative. The author is a psychologist who started a Kickstarter campaign so that she could write full-time. This is a story of trauma, of betrayal, and of internecine politics. Description eclipses judgments here. A villain is perhaps not so easily vilified if understood in her own context. There are great empires and small constituencies acting in their own interests, and years of training sometimes equip the disenfranchised with unexpected resources in this grand narrative of power and collapse. Second book on my fiction list this year is HHHH by Lawrence Binet. What is the obsession with Reinhard Heydrich? It must be that Himmler's right-hand man in the SS was the highest-ranking Nazi to be assassinated during World War II. An architect of the Holocaust, force behind the Einsatzgruppen paramilitary death squads, and deputy Reich protector for the largely Czech protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. Arguably the intended successor to Adolf Hitler. World War II alternate history aficionados have found it convenient ever since to thwart his assassination, establishing for him a prominent role in a new timeline. Witness 2 recent examples, Amazon's production of The Man in the High Castle and Robert Harris's Fatherland, for example. This book is hard to characterize, and in the hands of a lesser author it would have been a mess. It's part a biography of Heydrich, of course. It's part thriller as we follow the heroes, Joseph Gabčík and Jan Kubis, as they parachute toward destiny and near certain death in Nazi-occupied Prague. But in Binet's hands, HHHH, which is a German acronym translated as Himmler's brain is called Heydrich, is also meta-historical meditation on writing history, personal memoir of Binet himself, travelogue as the author travels to research his book. This book has a unique structure and an idiosyncratic plan, and I'm happy to say that he pulls it off gloriously. The next book on the fiction list is Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind. This popular work of fantasy is the first in a recent series, and Rothfuss is above all a storyteller, which more than makes up for a few niggling criticisms. The book has an intriguing protagonist in Kvothe, who has burnished a reputation as a larger-than-life master of magic and general force of nature. He hides from his many enemies in a remote town as the tavern owner Kote, where he is dictating his memoirs. This book details Kvothe's childhood arc, from promising but utterly alone young boy eking out an existence among orphans on the streets, to his goal of reaching the university. The world building is colorful and vivid, and the pacing never lags. The action takes place in a pre-technical world, as does much of fantasy. It could be the Game of Thrones worlds, for example, physically. And the book lover, a group to which the author no doubt belongs, will understand the appeal to young folk of the library of the university, whose vast stacks may hold the key to understanding his past. There's some YA language, I guess why not? The character is a teenager through a lot of the book. There's too much caricatured anxiety about male romantic inexperience for my taste. I'd dish out more criticism, but it would undermine my main message, which is that while flawed in some ways, this is a colorful story that entertains, and I think if you like fantasy, you'll enjoy this book. The next fiction book on my list for 2018 is Red Moon by Kim Stanley Robinson. More often than not, a Kim Stanley Robinson is on my list of favorite reads of the year. And this is both a tribute to his productivity as a writer and also to his poetic and thoughtful style. I've been hooked on Robinson ever since the early 90s with his acclaimed Mars trilogy, beginning with Red Mars, which is the story of the terraforming of that planet. But Robinson has written many other worthy and delightful books, all with fidelity to the science, linguistic experimentation, and an introspective narrative voice that is distinct and unmistakable. In Red Moon, he turns his attention to the near-future politics of lunar life, China having gained ascendancy there. It's no surprise that his vision of the human experience on the moon is convincing and informed, from the challenges of locomotion to the perception of Earth and Sun from the lunar surface. As with many of Robinson's books, his utopian aspirations lie close at hand, and some people find this inspiring and maybe others tiring. I'm definitely in the former camp. The book also feels like Robinson's attempt to grapple with the rise of the world's future hegemon. Chinese society 30 years from now is energetic and vibrant and riven and restrictive. I found the grand stew that is Red Mars to be quintessential Robinson. And the final book on my 2018 list is this short book, The Object Lesson by Edward Gorey. This very short book is on my list because it represents what I've been able to read since I started making these videos. It's 32 pages long, and it's lovingly and pithily illustrated in pen and ink with one sentence per page. Perfect. If you're not familiar with Gorey's work, there's that too. These words come to mind: obscure, absurd, enigmatic, compelling, charming, meaningful, and yet it's hard to say exactly what that meaning might be. I recommend this book, and I can promise you one thing: it will not take up too much of your time. That's it for my favorite reads for 2018. I hope you enjoy them. Be sure to subscribe. You can follow my Instagram. Thanks a lot for watching.